Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk ETC. I have somebody from the illustrious ETC Labs with me. She's been on the show before, Elizabeth Kukka, and she's going to discuss ETC Labs, past, present, and future, and interfacing with the community, and lots of other good stuff. So welcome, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Chris. Glad to be back.
Yeah. So for the people that haven't watched the last show and don't know all the great stuff you do, why don't you kind of give a little introduction to yourself?
Sure. I'm the executive director at Ethereum Classic Labs. And what that means is I was brought on to design, build, and grow our blockchain accelerator based in downtown San Francisco. And before that, I had done something really similar at Plug and Play Tech Center down in the South Bay, or Sunnyvale, just about 50 miles south of San Francisco. And yeah.
Okay, so a lot of business experience, knowledge.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Now, for the people that don't know, can you just quickly say what an accelerator is?
Yeah, the purpose of an accelerator is to help a startup move forward faster within a specific period of time. So for us, the intent is to have blockchain startups join us, where we can help with their business model, with their value proposition, user research, market research, their go-to-market, sales. And actually, if we can help on the sales side and adoption, we'd prefer to do that than to encourage investment or to look for outside investment. But that's the purpose of the 3 months. It's kind of a crash course MBA in a lot of ways.
Okay, great. So that's ETC Labs. So ETC Labs is an accelerator. Is there anything other? And is it an accelerator focused on Ethereum Classic exclusively, or do they do support other technologies? Want to talk about that?
Yeah, and I guess to quickly clarify, we're kind of a hybrid. When we first started, it was an incubator, and then we went to accelerator, and we're a bit of both. We work with teams that are further along. This might be their second or third company. And we also work with teams who, this is their very first project. For teams that have a lot of experience but are starting a brand new project, in some ways it's kind of an incubator. It doesn't have, maybe it's still on the test net. There aren't any customers. It's almost like an incubator-like company. But because they have the experience, we bring them in, versus a team that's gotten their MVP, teams that have gotten their first initial customer or a handful of users. And for them, we're more of an accelerator. So I hope that makes sense. And to answer the question about if it's ETC only, we're not. We're definitely putting more emphasis on ETC. We don't necessarily advertise any other blockchains, but what we do say is, we need all teams to integrate with Ethereum Classic. So be it hosting an ETC node or providing infrastructure for Ethereum Classic, such as a library. But we do prefer teams to build on ETC.
Okay, good. Now, forgive my ignorance and maybe other people's ignorance. Now, can you say the difference between an incubator and an accelerator?
Yeah, an incubator is generally incubating an idea or helping move an idea into a minimal viable product or an MVP or a prototype of some sort. That's usually what an incubator is, at least from my experience. Versus an accelerator is you already have that minimal viable product. You already have that prototype that's functioning. And now you're looking to take it to market. You're looking to move it from test net to main net, where you're actually ready to have customers. So that's usually the distinction.
Oh, I see. So you handle all people in lots of different stages.
We do, because the team at ETC, so even though we have 15 full-time core developers, even though they exist, they're not full-time at the lab. And folks at the lab, like myself and Ankit Srinivas and Darren, folks who are on the marketing and sales and business development side and partnership side, because we can't help build the product itself, it's not really, we're better suited, honestly, for a team that's got that aspect covered and needs more business and marketing support.
Okay. Now, you already kind of alluded a little bit to the ways that you support Ethereum Classic. So you have a lot of developers, and that's one of the things I'm certainly thankful for is when the ETC dev folded, ETC Labs picked up a lot of those developers, and that was priceless. and you support developers. Do you want to kind of elaborate also on other ways that you help with ETC core technology and in other ways?
Outside of the dev team?
Yes. So certainly that's a huge part.
Yeah.
But is there any other ways that you help regarding core technology, or is it mainly just through the devs that a lot of support for the infrastructure?
Yeah, through the devs, that's the main way. One way that we're working on now, this is a little bit of it's not really a spoiler alert, but it could be, assuming that this happens. We're talking with universities right now about doing project-based learning using Ethereum Classic blockchain for CS students.
Okay.
So talking to CS departments. So there's no guarantee that that's going to really be a core infrastructure contribution. It's probably going to be more dApps, but we're still trying to figure that out. So it could also be onboarding students onto our GitHub who are actually going to make commits, and that's also priceless, right? It's really helpful for them to develop their skills and to develop their portfolio for what they want to do after university, and then it's also helpful for the broader ecosystem. Right
now, so that's about bringing in more help, more support. That's good. How do you gain? I mean, it looks like philanthropic, right? You're supporting all these devs. How do they give back to you? Because what they're doing, they're contributing to the community. I guess, would you say just making ETC stronger benefits everyone, including ETC Labs? Is that the way to understand your motivation?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't have a great answer for you just off the cuff. I think our approach is the more projects on ETC and the bigger the community and active users on Discord and other channels, the more likely people want to stay in ETC and not go to another chain where there's an engaged community. So we want an active, thriving community for sure that's engaged and contributing. And so the way that we contribute, or the way that I can contribute, is on the business model side, the partnership side. Kind of, that's my contribution. And so if someone can contribute from the technical aspect, that's wonderful.
Okay. And so did the devs, I assume they didn't all move to San Francisco, but it's a remote, right? Dev teams? Okay. And all right. And so you already took in your first cohort of ETC startups, and I've had a lot of them on the show, and they have a lot of interesting projects to discuss. And I understand you have another cohort that you're getting ready to organize and support. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, we still have about 1 or 2 weeks to go before we announce the next cohort, but it will kick off August 19th. It'll be around a dozen projects, and they'll focus on core technology is one area. We have a few teams that will be putting projects together that are specifically for Ethereum Classic, which is exciting that they want to build on ETC specifically, and they've been looking at the gaps within our tech stack, or such as security is one area that multiple folks have submitted projects. And then a third area are teams that are impact-based projects. So that could be helping with emerging markets when it comes to payments, for example. It could also be with communication. I can't really say too much more, honestly.
Right. Okay. I don't want to get you in trouble. Yeah. I remember I was impressed with the first cohort. They were doing applications in lots of, well, you already know, but there was applications in IoT, Internet of Things, virtual reality, gaming, really, hot fields. And so making smart contracts, startups around those hot fields seemed like a wise idea from a business perspective. But what do I know? And so it sounds like in this next cohort, you're really, one of the big focuses is infrastructure, improving the infrastructure of ETC in addition to cool applications. Yeah,
that's correct. I think what's been a really bold move by the team, in my opinion, is that when I started, and you summarized it really well, which is the last cohort from a business perspective seemed to really make sense. And my approach, coming from an investor perspective, is if for some reason we don't have blockchain tomorrow, this is still great technology and teams that'll have thriving businesses. When in fact, what our team has decided is no, it doesn't. No, we're all in. We're 100% in, all in on blockchain. So so even if it doesn't thrive tomorrow, if it doesn't live tomorrow, then that's too bad. And so it's a really lucky position to be in, and it's a pretty bold move from an investor perspective. So,
bold move to really go burn the bridges and go all in on blockchain technology.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say most investors, the majority of them that I know in Silicon Valley, they're dipping their toe in the blockchain world and in the crypto world. Maybe they make a few investments, or even just one, or they say they do, but they don't really write checks. And for our team to be 100% in it's really bold.
Yeah, good. And then, so you support the ETC community. Do you do you have other initiatives, other ways that you support the larger blockchain community beyond just ETC?
We do. We host a ton of events, and those are all free of charge. We don't, unless a team comes in and they're going to charge their guests, aside from like $5 or $10 just to cover the cost of food and drinks. Like if they're really trying to monetize it, then sure, we'll ask them to contribute. But we've never done that before, not even a single instance. So yeah, when there's blockchain teams that want to come in and throw an event, we offer our space up, our AV equipment, our team, we help promote. So for example, TF Blockchain is coming in this Thursday. They're based in Seattle and Vancouver. We've done events with The Den, which is an educational group based in San Jose. They're heavy on the Ethereum side. And so again, they do a lot of education events for free.
Okay. So you're growing your network, right, with the larger blockchain community.
We're growing our network, and in doing that, we're also able to get Ethereum Classic on their radar and getting folks excited about what we're doing and wanting to support what we're doing.
Good. All right. And then I know you've talked about, you know a lot about marketing and how that is helped. You bring a lot of business knowledge to the startups that work with you. Now, a lot of people talk about how to increase awareness of ETC. You just mentioned it. Was there some things that ETC Labs, do you want to talk, like what are your thoughts on increasing ETC adoption in general? That what should the community do? And do you want to talk about kind of how ETC Labs is going about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So to increase ETC adoption, I do think having more independent teams building is always helpful. And having multiple places to have discussion while also figuring out a way to centralize the projects that everyone's working on so you don't have unnecessary repetition or poor use of energy. So I think that, having more places for people to discuss and talk and be active in the community and have that independence and anonymity and not all be in one place, but at the same time figuring out a way to keep everyone afloat of what's being worked on. So I guess how we've done it is we're trying to stay as blockchain not agnostic, but supportive, like interoperable. We're very interoperable, supportive when we go to events. So we're not just like shilling ETC the whole time. Like we definitely mention it. But then we're also there looking to listen and to learn about what other people are up to and what they're excited about and why, and not just telling them that we're the only way.
Okay. So interoperability with other blockchains, that's okay. Okay. And then communication. All right. I had my own thoughts I wanted to hear your opinion about. So about how to increase adoption, not just of ETC, but blockchains in general. And I think you guys are a big part of it. So my impression is that a technology takes off, a platform takes off when there's some software that is just so awesome. Everybody wants to run that application. And with PCs way back, that when spreadsheets were invented, that businesses really wanted to have spreadsheets because they saw how great they were, and so they bought PCs. And then there's always some application that people want. And so I wonder if right now, I think blockchains, there's not like a really awesome, with the exception of probably Bitcoin, there's not really an awesome application that everybody uses, like email. Everybody loves and uses email, but maybe if one of your startups was to develop some application that everybody just loved, it seems like that would be the ultimate marketing for ETC and blockchains in general. What do you think?
I think you're onto something.
Yeah. So, but I don't think we've seen that yet. We don't have we don't know what's going to be the blockchain Google or the blockchain Facebook yet.
No, it's so tricky when it comes to adoption. I think many of us in this space are trying to force use cases. Instead of there being a problem that anyone's solving for, we're trying to like force a solution onto them and then create the use case, right? So I think what you're saying is absolutely right. And it's something that we're looking to cover, or it's something that we will cover extensively during the accelerator, is doing user research, doing market research, doing user research, talking to your potential users and customers, and really making sure that you're designing for them and that they're the product visionaries, not necessarily the customer. It's the whole, you want a faster horse kind of analogy.
Right.
And so doing the user research, I think, is huge. And helping convert Web 2 to Web 3, I think, is big. But right now I don't know. I think you're right about the spreadsheets, right? Like that's something that everyone wanted. I think, do you think did someone I don't know the answer to this. Did someone create that out of the goodness of their heart because they needed it for themselves, or was there?
I do know. So there was a hippie that basically, that's how he described himself. He was a product of the 60s. He created a program called VisiCalc, and he wasn't very business savvy, so he gave it away. He was an idealist. And then later on, Lotus 123 was the commercial application that everybody loved and bought. And it made, I think Mitch Capor was the guy's name, made him a lot of money. But yeah, that's a little bit of the history of how that happened. And then with the internet, email was the application that everybody loved that made them get onto the internet. And so I'm just waiting to see what the blockchain killer application, as it's called, is. And I've talked with other people about this, and two things people have said is we still need to work on our infrastructure. We have to get it rock solid from a security perspective, and just get all that solid. And you guys are supporting that, which is great. And then other people have said, in addition to working on the infrastructure, it has to be just dead simple to use. Right? The user interfaces aren't that great yet. And so, like you're saying, doing market research, user testing. So all of that is still evolving, and I don't think it's quite there yet. Basically, we want it to where people don't even know they're using a blockchain application, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think exactly. Either they don't know they're using a blockchain application, or they're just, it might have multiple cycles, like chat rooms. Chat rooms were, I don't know, they were big in the 90s, but I was like doing IRC, and other friends of mine were too. And like, I don't think it was until mid 2000s that it even became kind of popular, and now it's normal. So it's probably going to be 20 years until there's massive mainstream adoption. I think data ownership could be the one that ticks everyone off. I think there's enough people who care about data ownership to be those early adopters. Mm-hmm. And then it might take 5, 10, 15 years for those laggards to finally realize, okay, I'm willing to do this because everyone else is doing it.
Right. No, you brought up another good point. I'm glad you mentioned that. One of the things you brought up is about the long time horizons. So we love, right, we love everything to just shoot to the moon in 1 week, right? Unicorns, everything takes over the world in a month. And it might take more time, right? It might take some years for all of these issues to be worked out. And so it might not happen. Who knows when it'll happen, but we need to have patience, right, about these technologies. Yeah. Great. We're all very thankful for all the work that you've done, and you've elaborated on a lot of it. Is there anything that you want and need from the community to kind of help you, and therefore, right when you win, everybody wins? Is there anything you need from us or from the community to help you be successful?
I'd love for folks who've been around longer than I have, or newbies, to start applying to the program, and to submit ideas, and to submit, something that they would really like to work on. And of course, you need to provide a portfolio or a link that shows that you can build it. But we would love to have more engagement from the community.
Okay, so more applications for ideas to be funded by ETC Labs, is that what you mean?
Yeah, and focusing on ETC, the better. That would be great. We're actually probably okay. We're doing a new model for this next cohort, where it won't require complete folks relocating to a very expensive San Francisco.
Okay.
So instead of teams doing that, they can fly in or drive in or whatever once a month for a 3-day intensive.
Okay.
And doing that each month, and it's, I think, far more founder friendly, and it forces us to be really thoughtful about how we use that time, and for everyone to be present during that, those short sprints.
Right. Yeah, you read my mind, because I was just thinking of what would be going through the audience's minds. And ETC is a worldwide phenomenon. So if you have people in lots of different countries and they have families, maybe not everybody could make it to Silicon Valley.
No, it's hard.
Yeah. Okay. So there, you don't even have to move permanently or temporarily to Silicon Valley. Okay. And what about the avenues of communication? I know there's Slack and the ECIP process. Are the tools adequate for communication between all the parties and ETC and communicating with ETC Labs? Anything you think is missing?
There's definitely, I don't know what the answer is to that one. There's too many communication tools, and it's causing probably more work than needed. For me personally, email works. Folks can DM me on Discord. Discord is a lot for me to follow and stay up to date with, while also doing like meetings and designing the freaking lab and looking for startups. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So I fall behind really, really fast on Discord. Twitter I'm on, but email for me works. WeChat works. WhatsApp works. Folks can contact me pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for mentioning Discord. Yeah, I said, shame on me, I said Slack, but not Discord. Yes. Yeah, Discord is a big way that people in the ETC community communicate with each other. Yes, that's true. All right. Now, so with the Atlantis hard fork, there was the date that was changed. And some people might be wondering what was going on with that. Do you want to kind of elaborate on that? Was there anything there to say, or what was the story? Why did what happened with the deadline?
Yeah, my understanding with the proposed date is that the first date that was thrown out was just as arbitrary as the one that ETC Labs threw out. That's my understanding of what happened.
Okay.
And so the thinking was, well, someone threw out a date, everyone kind of just didn't really everyone kind of just went along with it, and there wasn't much discourse about it. And so why not kind of expedite it and move a little bit faster? And the thinking was that it doesn't take that long to upgrade your software or to do that. So, the thinking was that it wouldn't be a big deal.
Okay.
I think that's it.
All right. So then everybody kind of worked out, and there's a new date that makes everybody happy, and so life moved on, and that's pretty
life moved on. I think it's unfortunate. I think that the decision that the ECIP process is a good process. I do think that Ethereum Classic, that we could be more nimble. I wish we were a little bit more nimble. And I don't think that you should be nimble just for the sake of, I don't think you should move fast just for the sake of moving fast. And I don't think you should move fast and risk security or risk just bugs and other problems that can arise. So there's definitely just a misunderstanding on our side.
Right. Like with infrastructure changes, hard forks, that's when people get very concerned about, making a mistake, deploying some critical mistake out to the network.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's kind of I'm sure there's somebody on here who might empathize, where a CEO tells a dev, hey, can you just add a button right there? And the thinking is like, oh, it's going to take 10 minutes. Where it's like, no, actually, that can take a week. And so I think that was a little bit of the misconception.
Right. Yeah, with all the checks you have to do to make sure that doesn't impact other things. And that's what makes it take longer than it would seem to take.
Exactly.
Right. Now, another question. So, and this would be with anybody that was funding the dev team. So it's not unique to ETC Labs, but whenever somebody gets in a position of power, how people get, and everybody gets fearful and paranoid, and a lot of the times that's a reflection of them more than the people that are doing good things and taking a leadership role. But human nature being what it is, people get fearful, right, when the people that are in the limelight. So right now, ETC Labs is doing great work. They're funding all the devs. They're like the group for Ethereum Classic, and that kind of concerns some people for whether it's deserved or not. But do you want to kind of talk about some of that fear that people might have with the power that ETC Labs is getting?
I think that I wonder if, I don't know that I think of it as power.
Here's okay. Like some people just bash celebrities just because they're celebrities, and it's not really fair to the celebrities. And then, as you know, the blockchain community they believe in decentralization, and they're from the get-go. The people that like Bitcoin probably distrust governments,
right?
And so they're just kind of a cynical or suspicious bunch to begin with, and so ETC Labs it's almost like unfair to them, or it's a little bit more difficult to them to deal with that kind of attitude. But it would be there anyway with any celebrity. Anybody would have to deal with that. So that's kind of what I'm just.
Yeah. I wasn't a part of the community back in from the beginning of 2018. I mean, from my understanding though, is that there was another small group of like kind of decision makers, right, at some point, who were kind of deciding like which ECIP proposals were being implemented or being built or being changed or whatever, or not. That's my understanding. I mean, again, I wasn't there, so I don't know.
Right. I guess what I'm getting at, so governance, I don't think anybody has solved the governance issue. So what you're getting at, there used to be ETC Dev, but then there's also IOHK. They have the Mantis project, and then Parity also has a client. And I don't think it's ever been etched in stone how to manage all of these competing groups. And then ETC Dev came by, thankfully, and picked up the developers. But I just think that's a really hard problem for ETC Labs to deal with. The fact that we're trying to be decentralized, and we've got these other groups, and then people some people are suspicious already by nature, the people that like the blockchain technology. So I just want everybody to be happy, I guess. and I don't want any bad blood to be, to appear. And so and so I don't have a perfect answer to that. I guess maybe the answer is just having you come on the show and just reminding people of all the great stuff ETC Labs is doing. And if there's ever any misunderstandings or some things come up that people need more explanation about, I could just ask you. But yeah, maybe the answer is just more communication and you coming on the show like you're already doing. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think you said it well. You folks can always email me, which is elizabeth.k@etclabs.org. So that's one way. Again, Discord or Twitter or on Telegram, it's LizTK. So like folks can always message me. I don't know that there's any reason. I think something to remember is that Ethereum Classic Labs is a private organization, just like IOHK, right? Like you have your own internal stakeholders. And so it's a private organization that's using a public blockchain, and it's really strange, or a fine line to walk when you're engaging with the public on a much heavier level than most private organizations ever would.
Right.
And so I think it's constantly trying to figure that out.
I think you said it well. Yeah, walking a fine line, because they have their interests and their projects, but yet the ETC itself claims to be decentralized, and so yeah, it's a balance, right? To walk that line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think providing it's expensive. Like if folks actually sit down, like take out a calculator and think about 15 full-time blockchain engineers that are on salary that are contributing to open source code, like that's a lot.
Right.
And sure, it does help our organization, but it's also helping, for free to thousands of people. So it's a lot to give back, in my opinion.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, it would almost, if you would almost prefer, or maybe a company would prefer if they had their own blockchain, that it was all theirs and, they had complete control over it. That might almost be preferable. But then if that was the case, then people may not be interested so much because it wasn't as decentralized as Ethereum Classic. So I guess it's the fine line is people love ETC because it's decentralized. And so trying to maintain that ideal, but still have parties participating and being successful, and that's what seems to be the difficult thing. And I don't have the perfect answer for that, but I'm certainly thankful for all that ETC Labs has done and continues to do.
Yeah, I don't think that ETC Labs would want to fork or do a hard fork and have its own blockchain. I definitely don't think that that's in the cards at all. Because there's so much shared common interest around decentralization, immutability, and censorship resistance. I think those are all shared values there. I mean, maybe we need to figure out how to apply code as law to governance, so that there isn't so that none of us have to make any of these agreements and decisions. It's just coded in. So. You have any answer for us, Chris, or a solution?
Well, yeah, certainly, writing down the rules, principles that we all agree to, that would certainly help to avoid stepping on toes. The ECIP process is kind of one standard way to make changes. What are your thoughts on is the ECIP, do you think, I know some people think it slows things down, but what are your thoughts on the ECIP process?
It seems like it's one way it seems like it's the only way that currently works for this community. It seems like now.
Now, I don't know too much about this, but does ETC Labs have their own internal improvement proposal process, and how does that correspond or work with the ECIP process?
From what this is some months back, I do believe the dev team developed their own, the ETC core dev team, ETC Labs core. I'm pretty sure they developed their own. I can't really speak to it that much, honestly.
Okay. So I presumably they're still working with the ECIP process, and it's just another process that somehow is involved with that. But we'd have to ask the devs probably to get more information, I'm assuming. So we've talked about the past and the present. So I know you've shared how you have another cohort coming along that you're going to support. Is there anything else looking towards the future that you have planned, you have hopes and dreams for ETC Labs and what people should be looking forward to that you want to enlighten us about?
Yeah, well, our alumni program, that'll start the week before our next cohort launches. So we are committed to a long-term relationship with the teams that we bring on board. And so what that looks like is a quarterly call and a kind of ongoing check-ins and providing resources and support when we can, and annual kind of event to bring everyone together when it comes to our portfolio companies or startups that come through the lab. So we are doing that. That's exciting. And then other areas where I can't share too much, but we are looking to help get projects to list their token with ETC or on ETC. So I think that's exciting. And we spoke about adoption earlier, and I think that could certainly drive adoption. Okay.
So what if you could have everything you want? Like what do you envision for ETC Labs and ETC? This is your chance to dream, like in five or 10 years. What do you see?
Okay, we would be for the lab, we'd be the go-to accelerator for blockchain projects, and we'd be the Ethereum Classic would be the go-to blockchain because it's secure and it's immutable and decentralized, and there's many dev teams working on it and contributing to it. And I think that's it. I mean, I hope that this is all kind of a big test, right? It's a big social experiment for all blockchains, really. So hopefully Ethereum Classic is, it's thriving 5 years from now, and it's known globally as the go-to blockchain to build on.
Right. Yes. Very well said. And so you want to continue to grow your incubator, accelerator, as you called it. And so presumably as ETC got more and more successful and ETC Labs got more successful, presumably you'd want to have even more startups in every cohort and just keep getting bigger and bigger. Is that on the horizon, one of your hopes?
Yeah, if not getting bigger and bigger, at least having resources and ways to help teams remotely or virtually. I don't know that we're going to have the funding to keep getting that big or the space, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I think definitely at least getting free resources out to teams and having workshops or remote resources available. Absolutely.
All right. Yes. So yes, we'll just have to see how it all turns out then in a couple of years. So
we'll have to check back in.
So we've covered a lot of ground. You've talked about the contributions ETC Labs makes to the core technology. You've talked about the previous cohort of startups, and then you've alluded to there's a new one coming, and you also support greater blockchain community. You bring people into your facilities. You've done things to help with greater blockchain adoption. That's something we all want. So is there anything that I've forgotten to ask or anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, thank you, Elizabeth, for taking the time to kind of share your thoughts. And I wish you the best of luck with all your continued great work at ETC Labs.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the invite.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.